Again on MITech TV. We're recording this on December 2nd, so hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I know I disappeared to the west side of the state and came back in a snowstorm. But all good. I made it home. Anyway, so today we're opening up with a few things. We've got a return guest joining us, Kathryn Snorrason, who's the Vice President and Associate Chief Mobility Officer for the state of Michigan. And one of the things that caught my eye a couple of weeks ago, and we were just trying to get somebody from the state on the show to talk about it, was the state of Michigan announced a partnership with Electreon. I think I got that right?
You did? Yep.
Okay. To electrify delivery in Detroit with wireless charging. Yes, that's true. Now, the way I understand it from the press release is you're working at a UPS facility initially because there's a gazillion trucks there, and trying to plug in all them cables all over the place could be a nightmare, right? So that's the starting point. Where do we go? We'll talk about some other things in a second, but where do we go from there? What would you like to do next after the UPS experiment?
Yeah, absolutely. So just the quick backup on that one, just for a second. Michigan is the first in the nation to deploy inductive charging in our infrastructure. Inductive charging, for those who might not be familiar, is charging under the pavement, under the road where you can't see it, and then putting a receiver on the bottom, outfitting a car or a shuttle with a receiver so that the charging solution under the pavement and the receiver on the vehicle can connect and charge as you drive. So Michigan, again, is the first in the nation to deploy inductive charging on a roadway to charge as you drive. But this deployment that you're talking about, this partnership between the state of Michigan, Electreon, Xos, and UPS is at a UPS facility in Detroit. This one is stationary, so it's static. So this is a great way for us to build this partnership, starting with that dynamic as you drive charging, and then expand it to static as a vehicle is sitting, thinking about it charging overnight over a charging pad. So I could talk more about that, but I just wanted to give that context of Michigan leading and then expanding the number of use cases we have here.
All right, let's go even further back. Let's talk about the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification,
Sure.
because that's where this all started out. And let's talk a little about that, then we'll get back to the topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who might not be familiar, OFME, the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification, was created by Governor Whitmer. That's the state of Michigan's office that focuses on mobility and how do we support all these electric vehicles that are going to be on Michigan's roads and across the nation. So our vision for the state, in partnership with other state departments, is to create a stronger state economy through safer, more equitable, and environmentally conscious transportation for all Michigan residents. Encourage companies to come here, test, grow, build, scale, invest, create jobs, and innovations for the future, and have it all start right here in Michigan.
All right, so how does your office, and I can do the acronym OFME, too many acronyms in life,
I know.
support companies' growth in Michigan? So, we're looking at this project with UPS, but beyond that, how do you support the state?
Yeah. Yeah, one of the magic pieces of OFME is that we coordinate very closely with other state departments. So think of, MDOT on transportation, LEO on workforce, EAGLE on environmental pieces, and MEDC on economic development. I know that's a lot of acronyms, but it basically means OFME coordinates across the state to help companies grow here, create more jobs and investment. So one of the pieces that we really rely on heavily is our grant program. So when companies come here to test and innovate here in the state, we do have a grant program to help them do that. So sometimes they're testing a new innovation, a product or service at one of Michigan's test tracks. There's one called M-City in Ann Arbor, American Center for Mobility right next door, Detroit Smart Parking Lab, and many others all across the state for companies to come test. So we have a grant program for those test sites all across the state. But then we also have a grant program if companies want to test in a real world environment, on Michigan streets, right? Whether it's Detroit, Grand Rapids, Traverse City, or the UP. We also have a grant program for them to test in those real world environments. That allows them to come here, test, scale, and again, grow here in the state.
All right, so let's get back to the Electreon, and is it Xos?
Xos.
Xos.
Yep.
Funky spellings, folks. I'm doing the best I can here. How did that all come to be? Who initiated that, and how did that play out?
Yeah, well, I think the first piece was that partnership between Electreon and MDOT to introduce inductive charging that again was dynamic in Detroit. So that was the first use case. Think about a shuttle that drives on the same route all day. If you have that same route, have some inductive charging along the route so it can charge and minimize any disturbance to the operations of that shuttle. So that was the first partnership between MDOT and Electreon. And then it grew from there. You have other use cases for inductive charging and UPS and Xos, definitely jumped on that opportunity as well. So between Electreon, Xos, UPS, and the state of Michigan, we all came together. The state of Michigan provided some grant funding to ensure this testing was we were able to have some testing here in Michigan. And it all started with, it's going to be a new installation of those stationary static wireless charging at a UPS facility in Detroit. And then Electreon's wireless charging technology will be integrated into the Xos Stepvan. This will allow electrified commercial delivery vehicles to charge overnight. Think about them using a wireless, cable-free stationary charging solutions overnight. So just a few of the benefits of that are, one, demonstrating more use cases for wireless charging in Michigan and Michigan being a leader in that space, minimizing downtime for that fleet, eliminating operational interruptions, and that potential to lower the cost of ownership in the electrification of commercial truck fleets. And this solution is really well suited for this use case, a dense operational area of a depot.
So, what are some of the other use cases for inductive charging, both dynamic and static?
Yeah, I think that's up to, public and private partners across the state to get creative and think about how can we use dynamic charging across the state. One is shuttles, right, that drive on those same routes all day, or public transit. Static, any vehicle that's parked for any amount of time. Think about the charging overnight example that I just walked through, but also as a vehicle pulls up to a building to drop off packages. That vehicle might be parked there for just 10 minutes, but if it visits that building frequently enough, right, it can charge over that static charging pad. So I definitely have a call and a challenge out to public and private sector partners in the state. How else can we think about dynamic and static inductive charging here and continue to lead in this space?
So, what are the state's clean energy and mobility goals, and how does this initiative get us closer to those goals?
Yeah, some very ambitious goals coming out from the state around clean energy, being carbon neutral by 2050. And so, supporting the number of electric vehicles that'll be on Michigan roads definitely supports that clean energy goal, especially when we think about fleet transition from ICE to EV. In the mobility space, our plan for the state has a goal to build out 100,000 chargers by 2030 to support those 2 million electric vehicles that are predicted to be on our roads. And then, more broadly, we want to just encourage electric vehicle adoption, supporting the charging infrastructure build out, whether it is with a cable or cable free. We really want to make sure we're innovating to bring new charging solutions to the state that work for our residents. And increasing access to affordable and reliable transportation options that are electrified. And whenever we can, making sure that things are modernized in our existing transportation systems, again, for that carbon neutrality goal.
Mr. Matt has joined us. Matt Roush, do you have questions for Kathryn?
So talk a little bit, if you could, about the rise of fleet EVs. I know consumer adoption has been growing, but not at the pace that was anticipated. So where are we with fleet adoption of EVs?
Yeah, I think this partnership between the state of Michigan, Electreon, UPS, and Xos is a great example of how we're looking at fleet transition, right? We need to test new solutions that work and have those long-term benefits of minimizing downtime. So this is one great example of how a company is transitioning their fleet, is looking at new charging solutions to make sure they're charging overnight, and looking at the magic of, cable-free, wireless, stationary charging. So fleet transition is going to be massively important to the state's carbon neutrality goals, and just making sure we're, supporting our larger goals for the state.
All right.
So where are we with availability of charging stations, especially in rural areas in northern Michigan? I know that's been a slow process. There are a bunch of incentives out there that are taking some
Yes.
time to kick in. Where are we on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, Michigan's done a great job of applying for and receiving, federal and state funding around charging solutions. But like you said, it takes a while to build those out, right? So we received 110 million through the federal NEVI funds to build out charging solutions around alternative fuel corridors. We've received other federal and state grants, but it's all about the time it takes to build out those different charging solutions. Like you said, including in rural areas and in northern Michigan and the UP. So you will see those over the coming years, and definitely encourage you to reach out to your city and our office if you have any questions about which charging solutions are being built out and where.
All right, Matthew, take us out.
Okay, we want to thank very much. Thank very much, Kathryn Snorrason from the MEDC for being with us today. You are Associate Chief Mobility Officer there. So thanks for being with us.